Momentum building for a 2014 college football playoff and why you should be on board with it. That's what we're discussing here today on Overtime with Matt Moscona. Welcome in. I am Matt Moscona, the host of After Further Review from ESPN Radio in Baton Rouge and all throughout Louisiana, also the publisher of LouisianaSports.net and the host of the Locked On LSU podcast. So you've probably seen by now and bandied about a bunch about an expanded college football playoff to 24 teams. This is something that the Big Ten, the Big 12, the ACC are all endorsing right now, and the only group or person seemingly standing in the way is Greg Sankey of the SEC, who, if the playoff expands, wants it to go to 16 or stay at 12. Now, Greg Sankey is probably going to lose this battle, which is something that's unfamiliar for the SEC commissioner, who generally over the last 30 years plus has been considered one of, if not the most powerful voice in college sports, from Roy Kramer to Mike Slive, and now Greg Sankey. But we're seeing a shift in college sports, as you well know, and this is probably one where Greg Sankey isn't going to get his way. Let's start with why this is happening, why they're looking to expand to 24. And there's two reasons primarily why this is happening, why it's going to happen. And then I'm going to tell you why it's a good idea. And I'm going to need to ask you to stay with me. I'm going to need to ask you to, because I know the passionately held feeling so many college football fans have that it's the most sacred regular season. If you expand the playoff, water down or devalue the regular season. I'm going to try my best to tell you why that's not the case. So please stay with me. But let's start with the two reasons why this is happening. One is the obvious one, and it's money. Okay. And it's not just greed, because that's another common default that people go to. And the bottom line is when revenue share went into effect in the summer of 25, every single college athletic department that was going to compete at the highest level had a $20 million line item added to their budget. Consider it this way. Revenues are very high in college sports, yet very few athletic departments actually turn a profit. It blows people's minds when they hear it. But for example, here in Baton Rouge, LSU does more than $200 million in revenue, but last year actually took a small loss. They spent more than they made. How do you do that? Well, you get subsidized either from a booster group or some other way. In some states, it may be the government that will subsidize the athletic department, the university, however it may be. But very few actually turn a profit. Every athletic department spends whatever they make, by and large. So now, all of a sudden, rev share goes into place, and you have to pay the student athletes $20 million out of your budget, out of your revenue. So you're already breaking even or losing money, and now you're adding a $20 million line item to your budget. So how do you afford it? Well, you do one of two things. You either cut expenses or you generate new revenue. And the answer probably is a combination of both. We saw a couple of weeks ago, the University of Arkansas announced that they're cutting their men's and women's tennis programs. And something that I think is going to happen even more frequently at schools that are going to have to make these tough decisions and probably do away with some of the non-revenue sports. So it might be support staff or travel budgets or a lot of different ways that athletic departments are going to tighten the belt to sort of cut expenses, no different than any business owner would do if they're having trouble meeting budget. You got to cut expenses or find new ways to create revenue. So cutting expenses is one. The new revenue piece is the other thing we're seeing. You're seeing a lot of private equity discussions. The Big 12 just entered into a private equity agreement where its member institutions can draw lines of credit. And you're seeing other places like at LSU, for example, they did a jersey patch deal with Woodside Energy. Venture Global is putting their name on the field in Tiger Stadium. And you're seeing that pretty commonly throughout. Tyson Chicken, Walmart. I think Tyson Chicken in Arkansas is the jersey patch. Walmart's on the field. So you're seeing that more commonly as these athletic departments are coming up with new creative revenue streams. But what's the easiest way to generate large amounts of revenue? TV. You're talking about annual billion-dollar television contracts in college football with the college football playoff. So how do you generate more revenue? More inventory. So it's not that the powers that be at college football are just aching to expand the college football playoff. It's that they need revenue. And the easiest way to expand revenue is to grow your TV contract by giving more TV inventory and redoing that deal. So if you go from a 12-team playoff and you double it to 24 teams, you're effectively having 8 play-in games matching 16 teams, then with the 8 teams that have a bye, you're adding all that extra inventory and everybody's revenue is gonna go up. It's the easiest way. Why did the men's basketball tournament just expand to 76? Not because they were aching to get another 8 teams in the tournament for competitive balance. It's because it's gonna add more games in those play-in windows on Tuesday and Wednesday earlier in the week in the tournament, and so the NCAA basketball tournament will generate more television revenue. It's singular why that's happening. Now, I said there's 2 reasons why. One is the money, as we just talked about, largely in part due to rev share, and 2 is access. And this is sort of the unintended consequence, but keep I'll give you the SEC's example. So the Southeastern Conference this year is going to 9 league games. Why is the SEC going to 9 league games after fighting against it for so long? Well, we just had the conversation. It's TV revenue. They're giving their TV partner, in this case ESPN, another week worth 8 more SEC football games. So instead of seeing LSU against McNeese, no disrespect to McNeese, but instead of seeing those FCS opponents or the G5 games nobody wants to see, they're adding more SEC inventory. So that's going to increase the value of the television contract and make them more money. Well, in so doing, you're guaranteeing half of your league another loss. In going to 9 SEC games, you are mathematically guaranteeing half of your league another loss. So who's worried about that? Well, the millionaire coaches who have to win games to stay employed. Well, you expand the college football playoff, and it's going to lessen that burden. Now, I know what you're gonna say. I know the counter argument. I'm gonna get there. The counter argument is, well, see, you're devaluing the regular season. You gotta go win those games. And I understand that. And I would argue, actually, is that this is a good idea because it's going to create more competitive balance in college football. Let me give you an example. We always talk about and hear about the most meaningful regular season in college football. The defending national champion is Indiana, the Hoosiers. Indiana recently announced they were canceling a home and home series with Virginia. And instead, they're replacing that home and home with Virginia with games against Kennesaw State and Austin Peay. Now, let me ask you a question. In what reality, in what world does that say to you competitive balance? In what world does that say to you this is a meaningful regular season? In what world does that say to you that makes sense? You know what that tells me? That tells me we have a system that is construct where the defending national champ would rather cancel a Power 4 non-conference opponent to play Kennesaw State and Austin Peay because the committee in charge of putting teams in the playoff effectively told them in year 1 under Kurt Signetti, all you gotta do is go 11-1. Doesn't matter who you play. Indiana, now they won the national championship at 25, but in 24, Indiana made the college football playoff with an 11-1 record. They played one ranked team in the regular season, Ohio State, and get their head kicked in. Then they went to the college football playoff, another ranked team in Notre Dame, got their head kicked in again. But they were in because they were 11-1. And the reality is, you and I both know not all records in college football are created equal because college football has watered down its product across way too many teams in Division One or in the FBS, as it's known now. And bottom line is, we all know, intellectually, intuitively, we all know that LSU is not the same as Louisiana Tech. Georgia is not the same as Georgia State. Southern Cal is not the same as Fresno State, but they all play in the same classification. Why? Again, because of money, because the G5, or it'll be the G6 now, with the Pac 10, 12, whatever they're calling it, coming back in. But because they want to participate in the postseason television revenue. So Tulane and James Madison steal postseason bids despite not playing an equitable schedule relative to the rest of the Power Four conferences because they want an opportunity to participate in that revenue. We can have a different conversation a different day, so I don't wanna go too far down the road. But the point that I've made so long is while we have been force-fed, programmed this idea that college football has the most meaningful regular season, I am trying to get you to reframe the way you think about this because college football actually has the most meaningless regular season. It is the only sport in the history of mankind, quite literally from the beginning of time when sports started, the original Olympians, wrestling naked in the Colosseum in ancient Rome. The bottom line is, ever since then, college football is the only sport ever where you can win every game you play and not even get a chance to compete for a championship. Now, an expanded playoff is gonna fix that, and it's gonna give us more competitive matchups. Intellectually, you have to acknowledge that you would rather see Indiana, Virginia than Indiana, Kennesaw State. There is nobody that would prefer to watch a Power 4 kick the crap out of an FCS opponent. And the counter argument from some is, well, you need the breather, you need the layup weekend, you need the opportunity to get young guys ready. No, you don't. Not if everybody is playing a balanced, equitable schedule, and you should be rewarded for playing difficult games. We saw that situation this past year. Texas and Ohio State scheduled each other in their season opener in 2025. Texas went up to Ohio State and lost that game in Arch Manning's first start on the road at the Horseshoe against the defending national champion. Now, had Texas not scheduled Ohio State and instead scheduled Ohio U, the Bobcats, they'd have been 10-2 and would have been in the college football playoff. I am telling you, I would rather incentivize Texas and Ohio State to play that thing up. We want to play this game because it's good for the TV partners, it's good for the fans, it's good for college football, it's good for everything that we love about college football. The two big brands, the marching bands, the fight songs, the pageantry, the tradition, all the stuff we love about college football. Let's see that game. But the team that loses knows that losing that game isn't gonna altogether eliminate you. And people are gonna say, "Well, then win the game." And I understand that point of view, but I'm gonna say, I'd rather see you schedule the game. And you're not getting rewarded for getting off the bus. But I do think you should be incentivized to be willing to play those so we see games that we wanna see every single week. And that means, yeah, maybe instead of a 11-1, you're gonna have a 9-3 season, but 9-3 watching 12 games that we actually care to see is way better than that being force-fed crap FCS games at the end of November. I mean, I went to Tiger Stadium at the end of November and watched LSU play Western Kentucky in one of the most it biggest puke fest I've ever seen in Tiger Stadium. Half the stadium was half full, everyone was gone by the end of the game. It was atrocious, lethargic. November in college football. You're gonna try to tell me that that's the most meaningful regular season in college football? I'm gonna tell you that's hot garbage, and that's what we have been forced to believe is right, and so you'll pick one off. What I would love to see, again, you get to an expanded college football playoff where you have 8 the top 8 have a bye, and then you have in that opening round, you have a couple of rounds on campus, and you're sort of playing it forward. So where's the incentive or the disincentive or the disadvantage? Okay, great question. Maybe it's in November, you're playing for the bye to be one of those top 8, and that's very meaningful to have a week off. You play one less game in the playoff. Or maybe you're playing for a home game so as not to have to travel when you're in rivalry weekend at the end of the regular season. It's gonna create more, interest because more teams are gonna have an opportunity. So, the alternative is play bowl games at the end of the season. These bowl games where players are opting out and they're effectively just because like, now we're trying to appease 5 and 7 football teams to get into a bowl game just to fill these matchups after dudes have entered the transfer portal or gone to the NFL draft and are not playing just as a training ground for the next year for whoever happens to be hanging around and playing a bowl game. Like, where's the incentive there? Where's the motivation that who wants to see that? I would rather see, an on-campus round of playoffs in first weekend in December than watch programs sit for 2, 3 weeks and play bowl games in front of 1,500 people with a bunch of backups. Like, we've lost our way in this, and I agree that the motivating factor here is money because of revenue share. That it's where we started. Like, that's why the the powers that be in college football that fought forever against expanding a college football playoff or going to a playoff. That's why now they got to 4, and then from 4 to 12, and now 12 they're considering 24. It's because they need to fund what's happening right now. The easiest way to do it, the surest way to do it is through television. So how do you do that? Well, like we talked about. So the how we got there, why we got there is money, absolutely. But it doesn't mean it's the wrong decision because it's 100% the right decision to see more meaningful football games during the regular season to more teams to get access to the postseason. And Miami proved it this year. They went all the way to the national championship game. In a 4-team college football playoff, they don't get an opportunity to even go play it out on the field. And you can say, well, then win the regular season games. And my point to you is not all schedules are created equal. You're okay seeing Madison and Tulane in the college football playoff ahead of teams like Vanderbilt, who won 10 games in the SEC, or Texas, who actually challenged themselves and went on the road to play Ohio State and then played an SEC schedule. I would rather see a sport throughout the regular season of college football where we see meaningful games every week with the biggest brands and then an actual playoff at the end of the season that is going to be fantastic theater. And we are headed there, regardless of how or why, what lit the ignition switch to get us there. We're headed there. And it's going to be a good thing for college football. Those who thought the BCS would kill college football were wrong. Those who thought that a 14 playoff would kill the regular season were wrong. Those who thought a 12-team playoff would kill the regular season were wrong. We just got through the most viewed season in college football history. NIL's not killing it. Expanded playoffs not killing it. All it's done is increase the quality of play, the access for more teams. A team like Indiana can win a national championship in this era, and that's a good thing for this sport as more teams are capable of winning if they have the investment there, and it's making it a balanced sport across the board instead of a group of self-important dorks in a hotel ballroom in suburban Dallas looking at logos inside a helmet determining who they're going to their benevolence are going to just gift access to into this playoff. So a 2014 CFP is going to be an awesome thing for college football. I can't wait to see it happen, even if that means Greg Sankey's going to take a big L on this one. Okay, do me a favor. If you're with us here on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and drop your comments below. Let me know what you think about an expanded 2014 college football playoff. Until next time, it's overtime.